Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey, good people, welcome back to another episode of Marketing for the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. Today's special guest is Vladimir Adonis. He is a micro-commitment strategist. He helps businesses implement a 4-step micro-commitment strategy to get leads, conversions, and clients. Vladimir, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am wonderful, Michelle. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be a guest on your show. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit about your career and background and how did you get into marketing?
Certainly, I would love to share with you my backstory. I'll give you the 2-minute version, right, as opposed to the 2-hour version of my story, because that could be so long, right, depending on the components, depending on the layers and such. So let me go ahead and give you the 2-minute version. Kind of like most people, right? In order to make a living, I once had a job. And my most recent job before I went into entrepreneurship full time is that I worked as an executive for a small university. I did that for about 12 years. 5 years into that role, though, I said to myself, I don't see myself doing this task or doing this role indefinitely. So after I said that, I had to answer the next important question, which was, if you don't continue down this path, what are you going to do next? So the way that I answered the second question, I said, you know what? I don't mind being an entrepreneur. So then I had to answer a third question. That third question is, what type of business or what type of entrepreneur are you going to be? Because there's a million different things that you can do, right? A lot of people say, yes, I want to go into entrepreneurship, right? But for some people, they're just kind of just saying it. I didn't want to be one of those individuals that just said it. So the final question that I had to answer was, what type of business do I want to go into? And I said to myself, this was about 7, 8 years ago. I said to myself, I want to go into a business that's evergreen and a business that's going to be around for a very long time. And to me, at that time, the business that made sense was the dating industry. I said, you know what? Dating is going to be around for a very long time. And I feel as though it's evergreen. So for that reason, I decided to hire and pay a programmer close to $30,000 to build me a dating/a dancing type of website. Because again, that was going to be my vehicle into entrepreneurship. So I paid this individual, and this person did an amazing job. And a year and a half from the time that I paid this person, I launched the site. And to my surprise, I had a hard time getting members. I had a hard time growing it. And keep in mind, I paid close to $30,000 for this project. So I wasn't going to just say, oh, well, this doesn't work out. Let me just move on and go do something else. I had a lot of skin in the game. And for that reason, I went to work. I went to work to learn how to do lead generation, how to do marketing, how to do Facebook ads, just so this project could work and just so this project could be viable. In about 7 months into that journey, the site started to pick up and things started to grow. But unfortunately, I learned that I was in violation of copywriting laws. And to avoid legal ramifications, I had to shut down the entire site. And the reason why I was in violation of copywriting laws is because the members of that site had the ability to upload content, had the ability to upload music, videos, and I don't have access to any of that music. So to avoid legal ramifications, I shut down the entire site. That was not a good time for me. I was pretty bummed by that whole thing. But then what I decided to do next is just simply take what I had learned around lead generation, around marketing, and I just started hosting workshops in my local area. And I started to do that for 2 reasons. Reason number one, I said, I wonder if there's other people that could benefit from the knowledge that I had learned. And then reason number two, I said, maybe one day I can turn that into a business. So I went on and I did 60 workshops just to validate my craft, make sure I knew what I was doing, and make sure that it was a valid business concept. And after hosting 60 workshops, validating my concept, I decided to leave my full-time job and to go into entrepreneurship full-time. And that brings me to where I'm at today with lead generation, marketing funnels, etc.
Wow, that is so amazing. And there's so many directions we can go into. But what I like the most, first of all, is your resilience, right? So kudos to you to just figure it out, pivot, figure it out. And you know what? This ain't working out, but I did learn this and I can make this. a business, right? I do think in the way everything is set up today, where social media and the internet is pretty much synonymous, it's like you have to learn marketing to be successful in business. So when you were asking yourself those four questions about, I want to be an entrepreneur, did the marketing part ever cross your mind?
It honestly didn't. But the biggest thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make a decision
Mm,
because I've been around way too many people, and some of those individuals are a lot more older than me, right? 20 years older than me or so, that just talks about, man, I wish I would have taken that step. I was I had I was very successful in my career as an executive. They paid me well, they treated me well. I didn't want this to be one of those things that I just talk about. So my biggest thing I wanted to do was let me get something out there. And I knew that I would figure things out along the way, so long as I had skin in the game and so long as I made the decision to take action.
yeah, definitely taking action. So, what was different when you were starting business number two? Were you still asking yourself the same set of questions, or was it a different set of questions now that you learned a few things?
It was definitely a different set of questions because I was working with entrepreneurs that was coming to these workshops that I was hosting, and I was identifying and I was seeing what some of those gaps were, and I had a better idea as to the problems that I can solve, and I had the opportunity to solve more than one problem, right? So one of the problems that I could have solved is I could have solved the problem around search engine optimization
Yeah.
because 7, 8 years ago I dabbled in search engine optimization and I understood enough about search engine optimization. It could have been so many different, it could have been content creation. There's a lot of different problems in that time frame that I identified. So now it was at this point, it was okay, what problem am I going to focus on and which one am I going to hone in on? Because I identified so many different gaps and so many different problems in the time that I worked with and trying to validate my concept and or my ideas.
Yeah, so many problems in marketing. All right, so how did you come up with the concept micro commitment and then micro commitment strategist?
Yeah, certainly. That's definitely a good question. So, yeah, I love to talk about how, because there's a lot of methodologies, a lot of concepts that I could have embraced. Let me tell you why I embraced the micro commitment strategy. I've already alluded to the fact that I started a dating site as my first business. And one of the first ways I tried to promote and market my business from a paid marketing standpoint is I tried to use Facebook ads. So I went to the Facebook ads platform and I said to Facebook, hey, I have this dating site and I want to reach as many people as possible. Can you promote? I want to promote and market my services. And at that time, Facebook told me no. And the reason why Facebook told me no was because they were contracted with a list of other dating sites, and they were not allowed to let any other dating sites promote and or market at that time. So then because they told me no, I said, you know what, I still want to be able to reach more people than I'm already reaching. So I decided to go to other platforms at that time so that way I can try to reach more people. And when I went to those other platforms to promote and market my business, I ran the issue that I was running into is that I noticed that it was costing me about $20 to bring in a new lead. And at that time, from a cost standpoint, it just wasn't cost effective for me. So because it wasn't cost effective for me, I continued down my journey. I continued down the path of just learning more about, okay, how can I bring this cost per lead down? How can I get better at marketing? And I started to observe my own behavior. And the thing that I noticed about my own behavior is that it was very easy for me to give, whether it be marketers, brands, or company, my email address in exchange for free resource, in exchange for free information. I didn't have any problem at all giving people my information in exchange for resources, guides, and information. Not only did I do that, I've also, in some cases, taken additional steps with those individuals as well. So it wasn't unlikely that I would give someone my email information and consume resources and or guides. And next thing you know, I bought their program, and next thing you know, I've joined their services. So that was a very common thing for me to do at that time. Not only was I doing that, when I started to learn from some of those individuals, they encouraged me to do the exact same thing as well for my dating site at that time. So I went back and I implemented and I did two things in my dating sites. I created two guides. The first guide is if an individual want to connect with a male, I created a free guide that shows an individual how to connect with the male on the dance floor. The second guide is if you want to connect with the female on the dance floor, here's a guide to connect with the female on the dance floor. And what I did is I went back to Facebook. I told Facebook, hey, I have these 2 free guides that I just want to promote and market. And guess what happened this time around? Facebook told me yes, right? They told me yes because I was no longer marketing and promoting a dating site. I was just promoting and marketing a free guide. Not only did Facebook tell me yes, the cost for me to get a new lead went down from $20 to $2, right? So hence why I embraced that whole concept of micro commitment, because all I was simply doing at that time is I was just inviting the people who may eventually be a client to take a small micro commitment with me, because I know that a portion of the individual who make a small yes will make a bigger yes and will become a client later down the line. So that's why I embrace that concept. And that's step number one in my concept.
I love it. And I tell people this all the time. Like sometimes and we're going to get into the funnel, but you have to bring people in with a low offer. Like we'll just say either a free offer or maybe a $10, $20 book, because we're not going to hesitate to spend that money or to give you the email address versus you just coming out and be like, hey, my program is $5,000. And I'm like, wait, who are you? What's your name? Before I just hand you over my earnings. So I think that is very, very, very savvy. For someone, because I definitely have a big entrepreneur following. So for someone that's not versed in marketing, how do you define the funnel?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The way that I define the funnel is people, you made a great point, right? So I have a service, and let's just say I charge $2,000 for that service. It's an amazing service, and I would like people to eventually do business with me, because if they do, they're going to receive some type of a transformation, right? In a perfect world, I can just go out to Facebook or whatever platform where people already exist and say, hey, I have this service. Here's what the transformation is going to be. All you have to do is click on this link here, buy, and then after you buy, within 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, you're going to receive this transformation. Well, it doesn't happen that way. So because it doesn't happen that way, and because people are not going to make that type of decision with you, you have to think about the journey. What type of a journey does someone need to go through in order to understand who you are, how you help them, and the type of problem that you can help them to solve to eventually do business with you? So you have to literally just think about what is the journey that someone has to go through. So for me, at some point, that journey was someone came to a local workshop and they spent about an hour with me sharing, and I was sharing with them the process of how to do search engine optimization for their site 7, 8 years ago, right? In this day and age, sometimes there's different journeys that you can take people through. Some of the journeys that you may have a group. I have a Facebook group. And sometimes some people come inside of that Facebook group. And when they come inside of that Facebook group, they get a good understanding of who I am, and they engage with me. And inside of that group, I give people the opportunity to take the next step with me. Another journey is that I may invite people or give people a guide and or resource. And when they engage and consume that resource, they can take this next step with me. So it's the journey that someone has to go through so that way they can engage with you, understand who you are, build some type of a know, like, and trust factor, and then take the final step with you. So that's the way that I think about a marketing funnel.
Yeah, that's also smart because I think sometimes when I'm listening to other people teaching marketing, sometimes I feel like they make it seem as if there's only one customer journey. There can be multiple customer journeys, right? Depending on your content and, of course, like you said, the funnels.
Oh yeah, there's definitely lots of journey, and some journey may require just involve outbound. So the minute someone comes into your world, they've made some type of a commitment with you, or let's just say you're running a group, and that person has made a commitment to join your group, and your group is about showing them how they can use insurance to build a legacy. The minute those individuals have made that commitment with you, you can simply reach out to them, because some people may not necessarily take that next step, right? You can simply reach out to those individuals and say, hey, I understand that you've joined the group. Here are some resources. I would love to get on a call with you. You can reach out to people based on them making that micro commitment with you. You shouldn't, in every single case, wait for people to take the next step with you. One of the funnels that I helped the client implement not so long ago is we were using a lead funnel on Facebook, whereby the individual provides them with their name and their email address. And after the individual provides them with their name and their email address, we did have additional emails that warm the person up and so on and so forth. But we didn't wait for the email to do all of the work. You have the contact information. You can certainly reach out to that individual for the sole purpose of allowing that individual to take the next step with you. When I worked at the university, I worked at the university for 12 years. It was a for-profit university, and the university was not going to be the university that it was if we, as an institution, waited for the clients to take the next step. So here's what I mean. They generated a lead, right? They used many different marketing tactics to generate leads. And when they generated a lead, the prospective student in that case provided them with their name and email address and telephone number. And we had a group of individuals that was reaching out to the prospective students every single day via the phone. And that's how they converted their buyers. So from a journey standpoint, it wasn't one of those, well, I'm just going to send emails every single day and hope that someone clicks on the email in the hopes that someone takes the next step with me. Sometimes you have to definitely be proactive in your journey as well, in your customer journey as well.
Absolutely. I love that. I think we're getting caught up with the idea of, oh, I'm going to create this funnel and I'm going to make money in my sleep. And it's like, hey, you can make more money if you're a little bit more proactive.
Certainly, certainly.
So, do you think every business and or every website needs a funnel?
So I think it depends on the stage. So I
Okay.
think if someone is starting off, you have to understand the process and to know that you can optimize it at some point. So let's just say if I'm going to use a group as an example. If I don't have any financial resources right now to go and run Facebook ads, but I have a knowledge and I have an expertise, and I decide to start a group around that knowledge, around that expertise, and that group is going to attract people. I'm going to invite people into that group and allow those individuals to understand who I am and engage, provide resources and that type of stuff to those individuals. Well, from a next step standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, I can go ahead and just reach out to those individuals, and some of those individuals will eventually do business with me. Let's just say that I've measured that, and the group has been around for say 6 months. This is the group has been around for about 6 months. I invited people into the group, and in addition to inviting people to the group, I've reached out to people and I've converted people based on that. I should say I did that without paying for any ads whatsoever, without any type of automation. Well, once I know that that process works, right? That's a customer journey. That's a process. Once I know that that process works, now I can build a more traditional funnel inside of that process. So what do I mean? Now I can go ahead and create a landing page. I can create a Facebook ad, drive someone to that landing page to talk to them about the value of the group, collect their email address, allow them to enter the group, because now I know once they enter the group, because they understand what the group does, what the problem the group solves, now I can reach out to them and now they can go ahead and become a client. Now I can more so automate the funnel process and make it be a little bit more, automation driven as opposed to manual. So it depends on the stage, but you can definitely start things off without a quote unquote traditional funnel per se.
I love it. Yeah, I really appreciate your candor because I follow a lot of people. I'm not going to mention any names, and I know there's strategies and systems for all of this, but I just feel like I'm talking to you. You're really debunking some of the myths that I've been hearing because I've had a lot of clients spend a lot of money on setting up funnels, but then there's no traffic, right? So it's like, well, if you don't already have traffic on your website and you've invested this money in implementing a funnel, now how are you going to get traffic to your website? You need to invest more money via Facebook ads to get that traffic. And I'm using website and landing page interchangeably right now, but I see that happen a lot.
Yeah, you can definitely validate things without quote unquote a marketing funnel. And to me, that stuff comes later down the line. Per se, once you're comfortable with scaling, once you're comfortable with automating, and once you know that that customer journey, works. Because some of us who are in the information world, who's in the coaching world, sometimes we need to validate our programs. We need to validate our concepts, right? It's not one of those things that's easily understood. And for some people, I've worked with people that's launching programs for the very first time that hasn't really been validated. Well, we need to be able to validate that, and we can do that. We can do so without a funnel before we go and put any type of money behind paid ads.
So, with that being said, what are some of the products or resources we should consider when creating a funnel?
Yeah, so when creating a funnel, so some of the products and resources that we should consider when creating a funnel is, so let me talk about the thing that happens outside of the quote unquote funnel itself, right? Let me talk about content. So content is extremely important. And the reason why I say that is that I lost my dating site, I want to say back in 2016. Up until 2018, even though I no longer had the dating site, I was still getting leads for people interested in my dating site. 2 years because of content, is because of the content that I had created. So one of the blogs, and I can't remember the exact title of this blog, is at some point, I want to say 2015, 2016, I wrote a blog, and that blog was around how to understand Caribbean men and how to connect with Caribbean men so that way, if you desire to find a Caribbean man, these are the things that you need to do. And I kid you not, that was like my highest performing, article. I think it was about 3,000 words. And I kid you not, the site was done. I no longer had the site itself, but that page, it was a WordPress type of a page. That page just continuously got me leads over and over again. Why? Because it was that piece of content that resonated with the type of individual that desired to do business with me. And and I remember in one case, someone ended up looking me up and ended up contacting me so that way I can coach them one on one. I was like, young lady, I am not the person to coach you on dating. I just created a dating site, but I'm just not the person. But because I created that piece of asset, right? And that piece of asset is out there, out in the web, just kind of just doing the work. And it just continued to do it over and over again. So I say all of this to say, you just need, a piece of blog or a piece of video that resonates with your target audience, and you can put that wherever traffic is going to exist without quote unquote a traditional funnel. Because that, for me, that piece of content was just a piece of content that was written on the web, and someone goes there. From the time someone goes there, they click on the button, they provide me with their name and their email address. In that case, the individual that contacted me ended up just looking me up and just contacting me. So that's the first thing that an individual needs. So I'm going to kind of just stop there, just in case you need me to kind of just unpack that anymore, type of thing. And then I can expand if you need me to expand on that.
Well, I was going to say content's important because that one piece of content made you look like the expert, right? Even if you don't want to go in that lane, it just still made you look like the expert. And I think sometimes we forget the content. I really think content's the foundation to all things marketing because it's traffic, it's SEO, SEM, PPC, social media. Like whether it's one or two sentences for social media or your 20-page website, you need content.
Yeah, and people fight me on this, right? But all you need, if you have a signature piece of content,
Mhm.
now you can go to someone that you can go be a guest on a podcast because you have a signature piece of content. Here's a 4-step strategy to get people to say yes. Micro commit. Here's a 4-step micro commitment strategy to get people to say yes. And I can speak on that topic for about 20 to 25 to 30 minutes. And I can write, I don't know, 500 or 600 word article on Google for that same piece of content. Now all of a sudden that one piece of content can just do so much magic for an individual. So people fight me on that all of the time, but to me that is indeed the foundation.
So just to make sure, because we've covered a lot, and I know you have your 4-step process, but to be clear, for all the note takers, can you go through those 4 steps again, just straight through?
Yeah, so straight through. So resource and or guide, because you have to have something to invite people to, right? So if you want people to say yes to you, you want to have some a certain level of micro commitment. What is it that people are making their micro commitment to,
Right.
right? Is it a resource? Is it a guide? Is it a group? Right? What can people say yes to? Because when people say yes to, they're saying yes to some type of a piece of content or some type of a community, some type of a resource. So that's step number one. The second step is, what problem are you solving? Right? Because based on the problem that you're solving, You just need to be clear and know that the problem that you're solving and communicate the problem, and not necessarily talk about your services, but talk about the problem itself. You provide search engine optimization service. That's amazing. What problem does that solve for the end user? So what is in it for the end user? For the end user, people are looking for them on Google all of the time, but they can't find them because they don't exist. So the problem that your search engine optimization service solves is that you help them to be found on the first page of Google, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is traffic and visibility. And I've alluded to that earlier. Traffic and visibility, you don't need a lot of it when you're first starting off. You can just go very, manual, and you can have a funnel per se without having, you can have a customer journey process without having a full blown, marketing funnel per se. And then the last thing, which I didn't talk about yet, is just follow up. You just got to make sure that you have a follow up system in place. And I can, unpack that a little bit more if you need me to. But that's the last and the final step in the 4-step micro commitment strategy.
No, please do. Like the fortune is in the follow up. So please unpack.
Okay, so let me unpack that. Let me unpack that with an analogy. For 12 years of my life, as I spoke about earlier, I worked at a university, at a small university in my local area. And when I first started working there, they were a for-profit university. And from a funding standpoint, the university had limited free funding that they can pass on to their students, so to our students in that case. And then at some point, the university became what we call a not-for-profit university. And when it became a not-for-profit university, the state started to grant them a little bit more free funding, which means that they had a little bit more money that they can pass on, a lot more money in this case, that they can pass on to their students. And I remember, receiving that notice and receiving that indication from the state at that time, and the state saying, hey, you know what, we're going to be able to give you a lot more money that you can pass on to your students. And I remember thinking that this is going to be a win-win type of a situation for the students, because at the time, it means that the student can take out a lot less money in student loans. So it creates a win-win type of a situation. And I remember one of the main stipulations from the state was that, hey, when we grant you this money, we need you to use 100% of it, because next year when you come back around, we can give you more. But if you don't use 100% of it, then we can't necessarily give you more. So I remember getting this money and reaching out to the students who were eligible. And the first outreach efforts that I made at the time was email. We created an email campaign, sent an email to the students to say, hey, student, congratulations, you're eligible for some money, some free money, in some cases, thousands of dollars. All I need you to do is come down to the financial aid office, sign this piece of paper, and voila, you'll have a couple of $1,000s. And I remember when I sent that, right, from a compliance standpoint, we didn't get 100% compliance. We didn't have the response rate that we were looking for. So we went to step 2 of the process. And step 2 of the process is we got on the phone. My team and I, we got on the phone and we started to call these students and say, hey, student, you're eligible for this free money. You're going to be able to reduce your student loans, come down to the financial office, sign this piece of paper, and you'll receive some free money. And still not 100% compliance. So we went to the third and the final step of the process, which was if the students were on campus, we told the professor, do not admit these students because we need them to come down and see the financial aid office, and so that way they can take advantage of this free money. So I'm saying all of this to say to you that in order to give people money away for free, right, my team and I, we had to, in some cases, reach out to people 5, 6, 7, or 8 different times, give them, this free money. So what did that teach me when I transitioned into business? That taught me the fortune is in the follow-up. So when I create a marketing campaign these days, it always includes contingencies. When I send someone to my landing page and I want them to take advantage of my lead magnet, if they don't take advantage of it the first time, guess what I'm going to do from running a marketing campaign? I'm going to retarget, I'm going to remarket to them. And let's just say they consume the content, and the next step of the marketing process is I want them to get on a call with me. Well, I'm not going to just ask them just that one time to get on a call with me. I'm going to have a follow-up sequence, an email follow-up sequence that invites them to get on a call a couple of different times. I'm going to have consumption sequence. So I'm saying all of this to say that the follow-up is very, very important. And anytime you're creating a marketing process and or marketing campaign, you want to think about, how do I stay top of mind, and how do I create contingencies and follow-up in every step of the marketing process?
I love it. I love it. That is so thorough. Once again, the fortune is in the follow up. I know I'm gonna say I'm 50-50 on the follow up. It has definitely served me well. I think my last client, it took me about 3 months to close that, but it was worth it in the end. But yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly. Follow up is definitely key.
So, what do you have going on in the near future?
So in the near future, I have a couple of things going on. So I occasionally do workshops. So one of the workshops that I'm working on right now is going to be July 5th, June 15th. I'm not sure when this content is going to be live, but and that workshop simply is going to be a 2-day workshop that walks people through my micro commitment framework on how to create a marketing funnel using that framework. I've been using that framework since 2016 when it was introduced to me. So that's one of the things that I have, going on. The other thing that I have going on is I have free resources and I have free guides that I can go ahead and invite the audience to take advantage of, if that's okay with you.
Yes, please.
Certainly. So the next step or the free resource and the free guide I have is, how do you know if you are creating a marketing funnel and or marketing process that's fully optimized? I would like to invite you to take advantage of a free resource and a free guide that's going to walk you through some of the things that you need to take into account and you need to consider from an optimization standpoint, so that way you're not necessarily leaving any money on the table with your marketing process and or your marketing funnel. And to take advantage of that, you just simply need to go to vladadonis.com, VLADADONIS.com, and you can go ahead and take advantage of that free resource.
Thank you. And we'll definitely link that in the show notes. Is there anything that we have not covered that the listeners need to know today?
I think we covered a lot. I want to say, thank you for, giving me the opportunity to share what it is that I know, with the listeners.
Yeah, of course. This was great. Very, very valuable information. And of course, if you want to work with Vladimir, you do have that option. His Facebook group is Black Creators Connect, and we'll also have that link in there, and you can connect with him directly. Vladimir, once again, thank you for joining us, our Marketing for the Culture podcast. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.